Happy New Year, everybody. Bet you didn't think we were coming back for a third episode, and don't you worry, I'm going to be doing this shtick every single episode. We are surviving every year here on Kissues. I guess, your host, Drew. I'm joined by my buddy, Unsound Rob. It's weird. I think we're on opposite sides this time. This is a new getting used to it. Now he's on this side. Either way, it's 2024. We're mixing things up. It's
Mhm.
time to move on to greener pastures, hopefully a brighter, better, less kiss year. I don't know, maybe in my book, I don't know. Maybe more kiss. Maybe, well, virtual kiss won't be till 2027, but we'll get to that eventually.
Hey
Either
Drew.
way, I'll turn
Oh,
it over to you, Rob. Happy New
no,
Year, bud.
I'm excited, Drew. Let's get weird.
Yeah,
I
we
think
got
I
weird.
think we decided that this would be a good way to kind of, I don't know, finish the year, start a new year, and show records, talk about records that are sort of I don't know. I guess our favorites of the year.
Yeah, we're going to look back a little bit on 2023. Obviously, we wanted to prove to everyone listening that this is not just a Kiss podcast. Therefore, this episode we're going to be spending talking about a lot of other different music that both of us listen to, a lot of stuff that Rob's gotten into recently, like with his new phase, past the Kiss era, or at least into a new venture, and a lot of the artists that he's explored through that. A little editor's note here. Just got to say, I guess we had to cut and not live broadcast Rob and I actually hanging out in that very room
Yeah.
last week. And, we had a great conversation, but it was a little too juicy for everyone here on YouTube. So we had to stop the live stream and we're just going in raw from episode 3. But I just want to say that I've now been in this basement. I've seen a lot of the stuff and I just have a completely new perspective on all of this the stuff that lies beneath
Yeah, many
and the
missed
stuff that
opportunities
lies
there.
beneath the stuff that lies beneath and
There's
then
I mean
some.
there's layers and we haven't really taken everything out. I will at some point. I'll get it all situated. But it was good having you over, Drew. Miss you, man.
It was a
Now
great
you're
time
back in Nashville. Look at you.
back in Nashville.
Tennessee
So
Joe.
Tennessee Joe. So yeah, so we're gonna just we
Oh,
picked out some records that we wanted to talk about. I was just gonna say that the records that I'm gonna show from 2023 are gonna be ranked from 10 to 1. Rob has a solid number 1, but I think the rest of them he just loves them all so much that he can't really put a finger on what number goes where. But he's gonna show you some of the albums that he enjoyed the most.
I have a problem with ranking.
That's fair.
I just have a problem with ranking. I don't think I even have a clear number one. I have a one, two, three, four, like like a top like that you can't argue with based on the year. But
Sure.
we'll get there.
And this is all fluid. It could change tomorrow. It's not set in stone or whatever, but like I think by the end of the year, I'd like to say that these are probably the 10 records that I listened to the most, that resonated with me the most. And yeah, I don't know. I have fun putting these sort of lists together. I mean, who really cares? Like, I can send it around to people and they're not going to care. It's for me. But, maybe you guys can get some recommendations out of this. So it could be beneficial
Yeah.
in some ways.
Yeah. I always love checking out people's year-end lists for that reason.
So do you want to go first? Do you want me to go? How do we want to do it?
Why don't you go? Why don't you start?
Okay.
I'm very curious to hear your top 10.
I haven't shown you, so you don't know what to expect here.
Right. I know Kiss hasn't put out an album this year, so
Right, so I had to really dig in deep to find
yeah.
some new stuff to put in there. Anyway, number 10. I talked about this band quite a bit last time. They released 2 albums this year. They're awfully prolific. They're from Down Under. I'll be seeing them a few times next year. This is King, Gizzard, and the Lizard Wizard with their first of 2 records that came out last year. That is Petro Dragonic Apocalypse. or Dawn of Eternal Night, an annihilation of planet Earth and the beginning of merciless destruction. That's the full title.
They went to Rob Zombie for that title.
Yep. Look at the boys there. There's Stu McKenzie, lead singer, the writer. He's behind a lot of it. There he is, shirtless in the cold. That's the kind of energy we need on this record. This is, look, I'm no metal expert. Rob knows that very well. But when King Gizzard does it, I'm listening. So this album is a good combination of like progressive and thrash metal, and there's moments that'll remind you of something like Tool might do, but then there's other like just crazy riffs that could have been in any like major 80s band. But I think it's done with enough grace that it doesn't just feel like a ripoff. So it's not really the like no offense, but the Greta Van Fleet, uh, as many people
None
will say
taken.
about Led Zeppelin. But yeah, so this is a great record. It's 7 tracks. It's probably like 50 minutes or something like that. They really jam out on some of these songs, and it's well, I'm not always in the mood to listen to something like this, but this album's awesome. And also, just a shout out to this cover. This is actually a painting. And there's a video of it on from the artist Jason Galea, who's kind of considered the seventh member of the band who does all of their art direction. And this, he painted this. It's like an oil painting. It's just insane. So really cool. My favorite band, but I couldn't put them at number one this year. So
I got to check it out. You're saying thrash metal, that's kind of blowing my mind, but yeah, I can see how if they do it, it's going to be done by Tool, right? In
yeah.
that vein, I don't know. I don't know. I don't really have a see. The thing is, I don't have these ranked per se. I might not have as much eloquence as Drew with pontificating the virtues of so many of these albums. But what I could say is like for me being on like the back porch in the summer, most of these albums that I have, on my phone in some fashion when you want to go outside and you want to, kick back on the porch a little bit. And like, I think a summer album for me, Miranda and the Beat out of New York City. I mean, I could read hype stickers, that could kind of give you
Read
an
the hype
idea.
sticker. Yeah.
But here's how I discovered Drew Miranda and the Beat.
Yeah.
Miranda was on Kendra Morris's live stream. Okay.
Okay. All
Getting weird
right.
with Kendra, singing
Yeah.
funky cover songs on
Coal
a
Mine
Wednesday night.
Records own Kendra Morris.
Yeah. Coal Mine, what's the imprint? Karma Chief is the
Farm Chief. Yep.
imprint. Yeah. Yeah, this is on Cannibalism, Ernest Jennings recorded record company. So a band I haven't seen live.
Hmm.
I should say that I want to see them live. I know they're sort of getting back out there now, and this is, I think, a different lineup by two members by where they're at now. And this record came out this year. So, how to, they sound like they're from where they are in Brooklyn, right? Like they're a band that they're somewhat indie, but there is some of that, like you're saying, that I won't say coal mine sound, right? But there's something
Hmm.
like there's a sound there.
A
It's
little
not
bit
just
of
a garage rock band. There's some
little soul.
soul kind of behind it, but
Hmm.
but yeah,
It's
Miranda
it's
and the
not really
Beat.
what I would expect from the cover. The cover almost like looks almost goth in a way. Or at least she does.
Yeah, like the Brood. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, Sweat. I'm not your baby. This is a really killer record.
Cool.
So, there's I guess what I'll call my number 10.
Sure. There it is.
There
All
we go.
right. Number nine. This one's from Polyvinyl Records, an artist that my girlfriend introduced me to this year. He is kind of toes the line with like the emo and pop punk, but also like an alt rock sort of sound too. This is Chris Farren with Doom Singer. And as you can see here on the record, Chris actually did some drawing on himself when my girlfriend Quinn and I got to see him live in Atlanta last year. We took a little drive and we saw him at a venue called Purgatory. This is a really cool record. Just really good power pop kind of songs, like with a little bit of a sort of emo tinge to it, I guess. Maybe in the lyrics, he's very like, I don't know, it's just very self-aware in a lot of the lyrics. There's some really punchy, just really catchy guitar-driven songs. It's just a really fun record to put on. He's got a great sense of humor. He's hysterical live. And our apartment is just decked out with random art and stuff that he's made over the years. So, yeah, he's a really interesting character, and the music is really good too. And I feel like he's very underrated. So, give him a listen if you haven't. Chris Farren. This is Doom Singer number 9.
Number nine. I'm gonna go with because I'm gonna forget this, so I'm gonna put this at number nine. An album I don't have on vinyl. I don't have on CD. I don't have physically at all this year, and
Does it exist physically?
it does not. Hopefully, it gets some
Yeah.
type of release. And that just goes to show like there's artists out there that are at a level where they're trying to get their music put out, right? Like it's not always there for everyone that just wants to do it, but there's a lot of time and work. And I'm amazed at this album. And there's something that I shared, with my daughter in one or two of these songs where she really got into liking to listen to them, right? So she took a liking to it. Uh, Audrey Jackson, and the album is Move. So, sister of Jay Jackson, which is how I discovered her,
Yeah.
right? Who is an artist in her own right, a painter, I would say is the trade, if you will. But she started working on music. I mean, she's probably always written songs, much like her sister, but now she's putting them out. And to see someone put them out at that level, at a very granular level, where it's just, man, there's a few people that are watching a couple videos as it starts to roll out. There's no big machine. There's just some people that believe in the music enough to make it. So she found a producer that worked with her on some of the writing and the arranging. And they put out like singles. It's very different how albums kind of come together, but this is a proper album that was released. It's not just a collection of singles. I would say that title track Move is great. Um,
Yeah.
it's a really cool record from the perspective of, wow, there's a lot of talent, I guess, in that family, to some degree. Jay
Seriously.
Jackson is one of my favorites. She's probably my entry point recently in the last couple of years to like all this alternative, whatever you want to call it. I say it, man. My biggest musical influence is probably Instagram. Like I'll go on there and you can see like who kind of co-signs who and like who's talking about who. And for a while, I thought that Audrey Jackson was Jay Jackson's mother because her handle at the time was something like Mother Dreer. And I don't know. I was just like, wow, her mom's really young. But turns out it's her sister. So Audrey Jackson, artist, I think is her handle on the gram.
Very
But
cool.
Move by Audrey Jackson. It's a collection of songs that I would say make an album, but I really like and appreciate songwriting, like where you could just really go anywhere with a simple idea and make it your own. And there's a voice there that's pretty unique, which I think is something she has in common with her sister. So I hear it and go, wow, they're both different in their own ways, unique, and have completely different personalities when it comes to their voice, and how they tell a story through their
Mhm.
songs. But
All right.
so that was
Well,
my
that
number nine.
9. Yeah, sure. My number 8 is an album that I don't know if you've seen a list this year, more than likely she's on it. Just getting tons of rave reviews, and honestly, I mean, look, she's on my list. I think it's very well deserved. This is Caroline Polachek with Desire. I Want to Turn Into You. Um, this is her second record solo. She's done some other projects over the years. She was in Chairlift for a long time. Uh, just indie pop. Hey, look at that.
There we go.
Kindred. I had a feeling there
Honorable
might be
mention.
that
So I feel
overlap
like,
there.
it's time to show it
Sure,
if you're it's
absolutely.
on your list.
Um, I don't know if you like Kate Bush, then you're probably gonna like this record. But she uses a lot of different sounds all over this. I mean, bagpipes are on this album. Like, there's just like only on one song, but very like different styles all over this album. Each song just feels like a different journey, and but it still all feels cohesive into this like great art pop collection of tracks. Also, one of my favorite album covers of the year too. I don't know, something about it. It's just very pretty and striking. But yeah, I don't know. I
Comes
just
with a big
well,
pullout.
everyone's said a lot about this. Yeah, there's a great poster inside. Yeah, there's been a lot said about this record. I'm sure you can find it said way better than I'm saying it right now, but definitely listen to this if you haven't. And if you're into that sort of Kate Bushy, sort of like weird pop, but like still catchy, super catchy, great, memorable songs.
Yeah, it's got songwriting. It's got, the most unique instrument is her voice, right?
For
And how
sure.
she kind of uses it. And I know that's one, or I don't know, it's been talked about as far as production, and those albums that get nominated for those sorts of things. It's definitely in that
And it
conversation of
got
what's
nominated for Best Engineered Album for the Grammys next
there
year.
you go. Yeah.
So
And beyond that, it's the songwriting and the execution is phenomenal. So, but yeah, I saw it and I figured that's time for me just to pull it and say it was
absolutely.
my honorable mention. Certainly my 7-year-old daughter's album of the year. I'll say that. If you want to go word for word,
Oh,
what 7-year-old child should, be singing
we
those
should
songs.
have thrown it on last week. We could have had a big dance party.
Oh yeah, she's performed it many a time for people over the holidays, I will say. We're very shocked. So,
Nice.
yeah. All right. So number 8, if you want to call it number 8, or we're going in some order, I am going to show a band that is kind of also with my top live shows. Okay, this kind of ties into an album that I will have higher on my list later on. But I will say that this band, Rid of Me, with the album Access to the Lonely and off Knife Hit Records from Philadelphia. This band opened up. I got to see them this year live because they opened up for a band that will be later on my list. But got to see them at St. Vitus on kind of the end of the touring cycle for their last album. Grimy, gritty. I mean, this kind of strikes a chord. When I heard them, I will say, like, sometimes you see a band live and you're there to see the headliner, the band that gets on before them, regardless of how they're setting up and how it looks, you just kind of go like, oh, I want to see my band. Like, I just hope they're not wasting my time here. And
Mm.
then those bands blow you the hell away. Like that was this band for me. Grimy, gritty, street, punk is not the word.
Okay.
It's really cool. The singer of this band, as featured on the cover, Idiara.
It's an awesome
Um,
album cover.
it's striking if you know the band, if you know Idiara. And this was pressed by her, by them.
She did it.
Pressed, this record, right, was pressed. The label is there, is I think Nick from the guitar player's band, could be. But I will say, like, it's pretty cool to see like photos of, like, the pressing plant where they're like, yeah, we're actually pressing our records. But more towards the sound of this band, um, I really, it resonates again. It's always going to go back to songs in any genre. If there's songs there, can you hear those songs exist in your? I mean, do they exist in your head beyond listening to them? And sometimes to me that's like a good song and a haunting song. So there are. I would say I don't have too many heavy records on my list this year. I did a lot of I listened to the Drain record. I listened to a lot of the ones that made the lists. I listened to Hell Ripper, right? Listen to like my Metal Churches, my Overkills, which I love all those records. But as far as hearing something heavy and new and striking to me, this was even a departure from what I thought it would be on the last album. So yeah, check them out. Rid of Me, Access to the Lonely, Knife Hits Records.
Very cool. All right, number 7 for me. This was probably the first album last year that I really loved. And I don't know, joke all you want because this is one of my girlfriend's favorite bands, and this was around the time we started talking. But this is Paramore. This is why. Now, currently, their Instagram account is completely wiped. There's no profile picture. They just canceled some shows. I don't know what's going on. Doesn't seem good. And this is a band that's had a lot of drama over a long time. This album definitely takes a lot of influence from a lot of like post-punk bands. The big one that my friend Zach always references, our friend Zach, is Block Party. So if you like that sort of thing, but you got Haley Williams singing those songs instead. A lot of just really upbeat, like great catchy, I don't know if you'd say punk, but just rock songs. And honestly, probably I'm not really a pop punk guy, but it's probably my favorite album of theirs so far. So um, it's really good. So if you haven't given it a shot and like, you associate Haley Williams and Paramore with more of a pop punk sound, this might be more up your alley than you think. So number
Good
seven,
record.
Paramore. This is why.
Yeah. Good record. Kiddo loves it. It's another jam. I think I have it. It's funny as they're showing. I'm like, I don't think I dug it out, but I have it, and I don't have. I think I own Riot. Like that's the one that got me when it came
Classic.
out. I was just like,
Yeah,
wow,
sure.
right. So yeah, that was certainly a jam this year as well. All right, I'll move on. Whatever number we're at. I'll flip these. I'm going to flip some of these.
It's your
I'm gonna flip
seven,
this
I
one.
think.
Okay, sure.
I think.
Say she.
Nice.
Yeah, this is good.
Yeah.
As far as a follow-up, I don't know how you feel, but a lot of times you go, all right, yeah, hopefully I'll like it as much as the thing I fell in love with, the thing that was like very unique and the thing that was just seemed like almost singular, like it couldn't exist in like, I don't know, in another iteration or another album at the time, right? That album is such a jam.
For
Again, a
sure.
record store album for me because
Yep.
the kind
Same.
folks, send out promos, the kind folks at Coal Mine Records. So
Really
yeah,
the
see,
only label that does to record
yeah.
stores that I'm aware of. So shout
Oh
out to
man,
them.
very smart. I'll tell you that because I can't tell you how many you've seen the coal mine section, like, and there's more. And then there's the singles. I have a whole,
Yeah.
so they're
And
doing it right.
I don't even work at record stores at this point, and like I still check out those artists now because
Yeah.
we got to experience all of them so much when they were sending the promos out. So
Yeah, but this is totally a band that I love because of that store. And I do have kind of an honorable mention later that's sort of in the same vein, but this is a jam, this record, Silver. It's a great follow-up. Three-piece. I consider them a vocal group. I know that's probably not what we're talking about here, right? But they're, if you go by the hype sticker, boundary busting discadelic soul. There you go.
yeah.
Right.
One of my
But this
first
is
shows I went to last year. I saw them open for the Sacred Souls in Brooklyn. That was a great show.
that was smart, Drew. That was a good choice.
Yeah. And Jalen
Good one.
Naganda, too, from Daptone, was another one of the openers. And he released a good record this year, too.
Yeah. They're a great label if you just don't know where to go.
It's really interesting with this ASHISHI record because, like, they went from a very concise, like, what, 7 or 8 song album to this,
Yeah.
like, giant, but this is, like, over an hour long.
Yeah, I mean, there's 4 sides, 4 full sides, and it doesn't lose me. Like
No.
there's no point that I'm listening or I'm going like, wow, like I don't want to turn aside. And that's rare. Like for something that's 4 sides of new music to follow up an album that I love that was more concise, like you said, to kind of get into it and to find something that you just love and you go, okay, I want to get to that next side instead of going like, I'll just play the side again. I'll
Right.
just keep
Yeah.
this on the table for a while.
Yeah.
I'll
That
do that. I'll
was, like,
start.
one that just kept growing on me the more I listened to it, too.
Yeah, but
And
this has to
I don't
be
think that there's, like, a single bad song on it.
no. That's why this has to make my top whatever, because there's albums that I could easily put on this list for who I want to be here. But as far
Yeah.
as replay value and something that I've listened to, I think that's what this list is for me. It's like my favorites. Like what did I really listen to this year?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And when this came out, I was even like a week or two late, or whatever, getting it by the time it filtered in. So I just put it on. It stayed on for a couple of weeks, and that's to me a great record. And then you go back to it a lot, and then
Yeah.
when you don't know what to play, those are your favorite records. I find like when you don't know what to play, and you go to something, especially that's recent, that kind of tells you. So that's definitely on the list. Yeah.
That's a really good point. That's exactly how these lists come together for me, for sure. Going with something a little different. Well, from Seishishi for sure. This is also Polyvinyl Records, so shout out to them. They had a good year. And this artist is very good friends with an artist that I previously featured Chris Farren. In fact, they have a band together called Antarctico Vespucci. This is Jeff Rosenstock with Hell Mode. I have never really gotten into Jeff and his music all that much. I always was under the impression that it wouldn't really be for me, but I also had never really tried it. And immediately, like, maybe not the first listen because I was just kind of hearing the sound of the music and I wasn't really fully captivated. But when I started hearing the lyrics, that's when this album really sunk into me. I mean, it's very like pop punk uh, or just punk. I don't really know. He's been doing this thing DIY for a long time. And I just have a lot of respect for him as a musician for sure. This feels like a very much a post-COVID album in a lot of ways. There's a lot of songs about like the loneliness and going through all that time, which, at this point feels like it was a bit ago, but still was left quite an impression on all of us. And yeah, it was just beautiful the way that he was able to put a lot of his feelings into words on these just very catchy, very just I don't know, cathartic songs. I just found myself just getting so into every song on this album, just wanting to like scream it from the top of the rooftop. So this album's awesome. It's my number 6 for the year. Jeff Rosenstock, Hell Mode.
Check it out. Very cool. Same thing. I've really never. I don't know Jeff Rosenstock as a singular unit. I know he's been in bands. I know I've listened
Yep.
to bands, but
Mhm.
there's a kind of related album. Maybe I'll rifle through honorable mentions that's related there. But so now what are we at? We're at like am I
6.
6 or something?
You're 6, yeah.
My 6. Oh man, it's getting tough. Boy, is this getting tough. All right. This doesn't even seem right to be number 6. Oh, seems low on my list if I go here.
Mm.
Whichever one I'm going to pull, I'm not sure, Drew. This is how like we're when you we can't rank. This is not for me. It's not a rank. I could never look at these artists and go, "You've ranked higher than you." That doesn't work this way. So I'm just going to go to. It's tough, Drew. It's tough. We're getting down to like our favorite albums. Like, and how do you say like any one of these is better than any other of these? Oh man. I guess this is an album. I'm gonna put this way. This is somebody that I've discovered this year. So I'm gonna right. I guess that's kind of fair. Beginning of the year, listen to a record called Outside Child by Allison Russell. This year, and we'll get to some live shows maybe a little bit later. We'll dovetail some live show experiences, but I got to see Allison Russell live outside at Bethel Woods in the sunshine, like headlined the second stage. It was amazing. Like I went there to see songs from like Outside Child, right? Like I went there with some, and I forget who ended on one stage. It might have been like Charlie Crockett ended, and I was like, gotta run to make that stage. Made the stage, and my whatever number this is, album of the year, The Returner by Allison Russell.
Yeah.
This is crazy. This is a great
It's a good
record.
one.
This is the signed version, right? Because that's the great
Where'd you
thing.
get
Now
that?
you just go to a store in Nashville and everybody's popping in signing records, posting on the socials. Oh, look who's here.
Oh,
Hanging
the
out with
Vinyl Tap
Allison Russell.
exclusive.
Yeah. Drew got to make it post at least about the signed record. And
Yeah, I wasn't able to make it that day, but Allison did come into the store. I worked at a couple record stores. I was at Dark Side, but when I moved to Nashville, I worked at Vinyl Tap. Shout out to them in East Nashville. And yeah, they're got some stars in that building sometimes. So that was pretty cool.
you had me green with envy with a lot of them. But this record, again, to follow up something with high expectations. To see her live is part of it too, right? Because that just the timing of everything. You talk about like a year where it's like, whoa, you discover this album in January, sometime in the summer, you see them live, and then they immediately come out with an album that I'm kind of regretting not seeing her on this tour.
Hmm.
Like I think this tour proper, she has a phenomenal band, one of the best drummers I've ever seen, like play music that I don't know. It's an impact. But this album, wow. I mean, just side one. It's a full experience. It's cathartic. Um, and I'm here for it, man. So Allison Russell's The Returner is definitely on
Awesome.
my list. I've listened to this so many times since it comes out. Again, when an album I've listened to so much, you're just you one day you go, all right, we're gonna go side B first, then we go side, then we go side.
Mhm. Mhm.
Just you're gonna mix it up a little bit. So this gets a lot of replay value. But just in general, I would say an artist that, you know, a lot of these, I won't even say Nashville based. I think that's kind of unfair to a lot of music that I'm going to generalize because not everybody is necessarily from Nashville, whether they're from Canada.
Yeah.
But I think where you see like a collective of artists coming together in a really special way is happening in Nashville right now. And that's why I have as much Nashville FOMO as you can imagine. And I feel like Drew is in one way he could be living my best life down there in all these dive bars in January and February, seeing Sierra Farrell play at Roberts on a Tuesday night. Oh. But there you go. So Allison Russell, The Return, number 6.
So we're just talking about Vinyl Tap, right? I got my job there because I was at an autograph signing at a nearby record store, Brimey's. It's probably, one of the flagship stores in Nashville for sure. They were doing a big event for this album, and I heard a rumor in line saying, "Oh, he's playing a show tonight at a really small venue. Um, tickets aren't, they're not available online. Some of the record stores might have them. It's just a tiny venue. If you get lucky, you get lucky." And the guy who was ahead of me in line that was saying that ended up giving a spare ticket to the person behind him or in front of him. That would have been me. Yeah. Anyway, so she ended up going, and I was like, well, I want to go to this thing too. So I asked him, I was like, is there anywhere I could go? Because I was very new to the town at the time. And he's like, oh, try Vinyl Tap. Maybe they'll be able to hook you up. So I went in there and I saw who ended up being my future boss just on the phone, just like, no, sorry, we're out. We don't have tickets. We don't have tickets. And I figured that I had no chance, but instead I asked for a job and I got that job. And I worked there and I made a lot of friends and it was a great experience. But that's not what you guys are here for. You guys are here to hear about the music and the album that got me that job. It's Jason Isbell's Weather Vanes, my number 5 on the year. This is a super flex because it's signed by the full band, uh, including Miss Amanda Shires. Um, this album was, I don't know what it was. When I first started listening to it, I was just like, I don't know if I'm there anymore with Jason. And I've been going, listening to him really since Something More Than Free came out, his solo record. And a lot of people have been listening to him a lot longer with Drive By Truckers and everything. But I've been listening to him for years. I've seen him live a few times. I kind of felt like I was just kind of in a rut with his music or something. And then this album was actually produced by him instead of the usual Dave Cobb. And it had a different feel to it. It was a lot more rocking than previous albums. I don't know. It wasn't working for me at first, but it ended up being my most played album of the year. I played this album so much, and I mean, I've grown to love almost every song on here. He is just an expert storyteller. Just in terms of crafting stories, I mean, there's really nobody better. Um, and I just ran into Jason at Parnassus Books in Nashville, so shout out to that. And while we're at it too, they reissued Southeastern this year, and I also have a signed copy there, also thanks to my time at Vinyl Tap. So this was a big one for me this year. I got to see Jason play at the Ryman, one of his 8 residency shows. He played all of Southeastern that night. It was the first of 8, and then played a couple songs from this one, including King of Oklahoma, which was so good. So yeah, if you've never listened to Jason, he might make you cry. So
Yeah,
if you want
he's
that,
good at that.
go for it. It's
As long
never
as he
cry.
doesn't make Miss Amanda Shires cry, I'm cool with it. Okay, but he makes
Ugh.
me cry. He's that's a record I just didn't dig out, but yeah, that's something that I've listened to a lot. That was a back porch record for sure. And I think, like you said, it had more of a drive and more of a. I think it was more focused. I won't even say focused, but like it was more rocking than
Mm.
maybe previous records. But his guitar playing is something that doesn't get spoken about, I think, because his songwriting and maybe his persona or whatever it is overshadows him. But Killer, he's the first show I have coming up for 2024. I have
You should
tickets if
go.
I believe I'm going to keep him and go because I don't want to regret not seeing him at Radio City Music Hall.
I think you should go.
So I haven't seen him before. Y'all got me into him. There's another record store guy for me that really, I don't know him as Jason Isbell. I know him
Yep.
as Mr. Amanda Shires and like that weird guitar player she has in every video. Like, who's this guy?
Yep. Yeah.
And I think Justin was the one who broke it to me. Because that's Jason Isbell. I'm like, oh, that's Jason Isbell. And
Oh, the
knew the
guy from
name, maybe
Killers of the
heard him at the
Flower Moon.
store, never made that correlation. Never made the correlation between the guy that was being played at the store had some other thing or married somebody who, yeah, I don't know. Definitely a Shire. Amanda Shires did have a record this year. We should say that because I did not dig that out.
Yeah, she did. It was kind of a quiet one. It was with Bobby Nelson,
Yeah,
just kind of a little tribute record that they recorded together before she passed away, right?
really nice, man. Like a really
Yeah.
nice record that I'm glad saw the light of day.
Yep.
All right, number 5. This is where it really starts to get hard, but I'm just gonna go with Alanna Royale.
Nice.
Trouble is, phenomenal record. I mean, soul. I would definitely put this in like some neo soul category, but that I hate marginalizing anybody by saying here's their genre that you're supposed to, without ever hearing them, assume they're going to be like everything else that would fall into that genre. Again, it comes down to songwriting for me, and somebody that I noticed from, maybe it was Coal Mine, right? Because there's a
Mm.
single here and there. I think there's a connection somewhere with Kelly Finnegan. Like I know she's
Okay.
kind of on
Mm.
those records. And live, I saw her sing with the Monophonics. She
Mm.
didn't open proper, but this is going back to like fall of like 2022. The Monophonics, Kendra Morris, and GA20 played the Music Hall of Williamsburg, I think. And she was there with the Monophonics singing. I saw her at the merch table and I was like, yo, will you sign the 7-inch that was from this forthcoming record that was at the
Oh
time didn't
yeah.
see like it was ever going to see the light of day. And to hear her, and I met her husband, Jared Wayne, who's the guitar player on this record, speak to the fact that they've had this recorded for a while and they were just hoping to try to get it out, and find a way to get it out this year. Songs, it's got songs all over this and it has a vibe. So to me, if I went, last year, my album of the year was Kendra Morris, hands down, like, 9 Lives. This is like one beat.
Mm.
If I was playing 9 Lives, you go right into this and there's some common there. It feels like there's some common threads there.
Right.
I actually don't know that Jeremy Page worked on this specifically, but it has that kind of sound that contributes to like what he does with everybody that he's working with right now. Again, signed copy. I think Drew, what did you send me? There was something from Nashville, right?
Mm.
I
Yeah, I
think it
don't
was her
remember.
first. I think it's her first record, and then I think maybe there's a
Yes.
couple signed copies. I forget
Yeah, we had a
exactly,
couple of the previous ones too. That was another one I
but
missed. I didn't get to see her. Now, she didn't play at our store. She just did like a listening party when it came out, but I wasn't able to make that one either. So,
she did she does a holiday show every year in Nashville based.
mm,
Um, so different, right? Like a holiday themed show. It's not her show, but I will say, like, I got to see her in the Sultan Room in Brooklyn. Every great show you want to see is in Brooklyn nowadays. So For me, from where I live, it's a drive. But I will
It's
say,
tough. Yeah.
this was an immediate, I'm going to buy the ticket as soon as it was announced. I went there. DJ 24 Karat Kenny on the ones and twos with her DJ debut. Kendra Morris was there just supporting with Supremo Massive, who plays with her right now. So again, a group of people that you want to go and you go like, oh, I wish I could see more of these shows because there's a lot of local Brooklyn artists that kind of get together. And this is like a Brooklyn artist by, you know, almost by association who lives in
Hmm.
Nashville, right? But
Right.
Alanna Royale, amazing, phenomenal voice. You know, I love a voice that's so pitch perfect that can do no wrong, and the soul that's behind it singing these songs. This is the record right here. It has the songs, you know, without going on and on. I will say this could easily be number one for me on some days because this
Sure.
at this point, you know, you want to talk about like how much you listen to it since it's come out. You know, these songs, and I feel like some of them that got released like earlier in the year, you know, I don't really like to listen to singles or streams, but if you put it out proper on a 7 inch, and I'm going to get the 7 inch, to me,
Yeah.
that's like, it's
Yeah.
fair game. So
Sure.
there you go. Alana Royale.
Nice pick. I only got to hear that one a couple times. I can't really, I wasn't super familiar with it, but I got to go back to it because I did like what I heard. My number four uh, is interesting because it was the first band I saw live in 2023 and the last band I saw live in 2023, with a bunch in between. This is Slaughter Beach Dog with their new record, Crying, Laughing, Waving, Smiling. Uh, Album title is a reference to the great 70s artist Labi Siffre. I believe that's how it's pronounced. It's a very similar album title. Anyway, this is Jake and Ian, formerly of Modern Baseball, coming together with a couple other guys and going full Americana singer-songwriter, you know, maybe Tom Petty inspired or like a lot of those artists. Jake's always had a really good songwriting style. It's very, I don't know, very impressionable. It's a lot of like experiences, these little moments that he's able to capture and write about in his songs that are just, there's a song on this album called Engine that's one of my favorites of the year. It's like 8 minutes long and it's just super nostalgic sounding with like the reverb and the guitars and the keys. And just he's just telling these little stories about childhood, and it's just like it's very moving. So there's a lot of songs like that on this album that are just like really like just they'll bring you to the place that you want to get to when you hear them. You know, it's he's not trying to make you cry, but like you're just gonna hear these little bits that are just gonna get in your head and just make you think about old times in your own life, you know, while he's reflecting on his own. I got to see this band in Woodstock at Levon Helm Studios in the beginning of the year, and then I got to see them at the Basement East here in Nashville to close the year. And both shows were really good. They have a lot of good energy live. He's entertaining to just listen to. And yeah, I really recommended this. I didn't know much about modern baseball. It's another big pop punk band that I kind of missed over the last decade, but this turn is just awesome. And I love this record. So yeah, this is my number four.
And not to be confused, Drew, because we are a Kiss-ish podcast, right? With the name.
Mm,
Not to be confused with Mark Slaughter and Company.
right.
Slaughter.
Much different.
Or, right. All right. So we'll stay on track. We'll stay focused, right? So we're top now four. So number
Mhm.
four, if I go number
Mhm.
four, I don't know about you, but early releases in the year kind of seem to usually fall to the wayside, right, for year-end lists. So something that I feel like was released, and don't quote me on this, early last year, that maybe not early, but man, like Staying Power, CD that didn't leave the car, an album that didn't leave the table. And again, coming from a scene that I think is really cool when you find a city that has certain type of, you know, music attached to it. even if it's different genres. But certain bands that are there and that's their home base, that's their home city. Toronto, Ontario's Blood Ceremony. And I am proud to say that I've been with this band since day one, since I heard the first float, on my Demon Brother on some comp that was out there. But yeah, a Canadian based band out of Toronto, which you'll find a ton of, in the 2000s, somewhere in the late 2000s in Toronto, something special was happening. And there
Hmm.
was bands that were more, I don't even want to say rock oriented. That's almost a given, but in ways of exploring sounds that weren't just, past the 80s, the 70s, but this is, I don't know if I would call this flute doom metal. I don't know if I would call this, there's no metal. I mean, metal is probably the wrong word. Okay, this is more
Hmm.
70s retro, but that's so fashionable. I don't want to call it that either. The new album with 10 Tales of Occult Madness from the Toronto-based group.
Hmm.
Toronto-based group is something I would, put out there. Female vocals, a lot of what I listen
Hmm.
to, a lot of what I prefer, what I lean to, just seems to have female vocals for, I guess, a number of different reasons, maybe.
Hmm.
But this is a band that, if this is their fourth or fifth proper album, every 3 years you're going to get a solid Blood Ceremony record. They're expansive in what they do. They build on the sound that they've had before. So I mean, you can go back from album one to where they are now, and you're not going to find a bad album there. This has more of a very like there's songs at the middle of everything, right? Like I always go back to like there's songs. Um, there are songs on this, Drew. I'm pretty sure, like if you checked out like Hecate, you would be like, wow. Like
Hmm.
you would go like, wow, like what is this? Who is this? And that's why I love bands that could just draw you in by being unique and being different amongst bands. Because if I gave you the byline that would put them into that, I don't know, doom and stoner,
Right.
female fronted flute, you could even assume it might be one thing, but then you're going to get some shades of these amazing songs. And this is an album that has instrumentation that took me by surprise as somebody that, knows the band and that's listened to them. But check them out. If you haven't listened to them, you might be surprised. Metal is probably a harsh term for them because I don't believe they're metal. It's more, I guess, what I would call somewhere a cult, like we're out there performing some Wiccan ceremonies in the woods, Drew, and we're pulling out the Blood Ceremony record, and it all makes sense in the universe.
Okay. I like the description. That sounds really interesting. I might have to
Yeah,
give that a shot.
check it out.
All right, top three now. This is getting, I mean, God, I love all these records that I've talked about so far.
Oh, this is going to be tough.
And
Just, just let's just say that, right? I don't think that any of these records.
I feel like you're loosely trying to rank these as you go.
I'm just trying to put them in some kind of order because I know you
Yeah.
gave this some kind of thought, and
Hmm.
so I will let
Okay.
you continue with top three.
So, my former boss, Justin, we've talked about him, future guest. He once showed me this band, and by way of someone else in the industry who recommended them to him. And I was just really blown away by the sound. I didn't really know what to make of it, but it was just really captivating. And I know Justin has a particular affinity for the Pogues in particular. Obviously, rest in peace, Shane McGowan passed away this year. Um, and like I've always kind of liked what I've heard of the Pogues. He used to play it a lot in the store, but this Irish band spoke to me a lot more. No offense, but this band, Lankum, with False Lankum, came out on Rough Trade Records this year. This is probably my pretentious album of the year. But it is so haunting. Like if you enjoyed the films by like Robert Eggers, like The Witch, if you're into those like dark stories, I mean, a lot of these songs on this album are traditional Irish songs that are just reworked into very haunting styles. And obviously, a lot of those old folk legends and stuff have these dark turns in the stories, and this music fits it so perfectly. The first song on this album is called Go Dig My Grave, and it is so dark, and the lyrics are so intense, and then these just drones just come in the last 4 minutes of the song that just it just gets so intense, and you like I get chills just thinking about those moments on the song on the album. But not every song is like that. They're all dark in some way, but a lot of them can be really stripped back, and they have male vocalists and female vocalists in this group, and some of the just acoustic guitar songs with female vocals, uh, just telling these old stories. There's just like a weird haunting part of it. Like you feel like something is off and uncomfortable. And I don't know, it just has made it one of the most interesting listens I've had this year. Um, just a band that's going to be on my radar from here on out. I don't know if they'll ever make something that'll captivate me quite like this one has, but like this one is like nightmare fuel. If you're a horror junkie, check this band out. I think it's really cool. This is Lankum, False Lankum, my number 3 album of the year.
Well said, Drew. That's an interesting take, seemingly.
Yeah.
Something I would check out if I ever find myself maybe at the Pearl River Hotel again on a Saturday night, listening to traditional Irish music. That's how I grew up, Drew. So, all right, top 3. Just doesn't seem fair. I'm going to save my number 3 for my number 1. If we're just making things up here, I'm going to do that. All right. It's just going to be more feasible for the functionality of the display for the presentation of this artist. If we were going to go by albums, but it doesn't really matter. All right. So that leaves me to what I'm going to call number 3, but an album that has absolutely taken me by surprise. Something that's captivated me since I've heard it. The road into this album is through someone that I can't wait to see in 2024. Didn't get to see in 2023 because of a rain event. So the person that got me into this individual is Sierra Farrell, who you'll hear me obviously speak more on as she plays more this year, as her album comes out this year. Definitely my number 1 most anticipated anything in 2024. Maybe besides the Good Boys and Hyrax putting out their long-awaited follow up this year. But I would say that the long overweighted wind up to my number 3 leads us to a very surprising something that I'm still trying to qualify and quantify in my brain and mind. Where this fits, does it matter? Do I care? Do I just like the songs, man? So Zach Bryan's Zach Bryan, which I believe is his, if we're going to call it maybe a proper 4th album. As I've learned, he has 2 independents out. I guess a major label debut, which is a triple album, which I think we've spoken about. Like it's a hard one to just
it's a behemoth
throw on, right? Because somewhere between like song 16 and 24, you're like, all right, I just need a break. And there's nothing to fault the music, but it's just it's abundant on that record because it's like song after song after song, and you're like, whoa, what's going on? But that's that record, which I've learned about after discovering this record through the song with Sierra Farrell, Holy Roller, which is she's featured on so many records that they're all great. There's an Old Crow Medicine Show song that I discovered not too long ago that she's been on, but there's so many records and songs that she's featured on that I hope she gets her prominence this year. But the other duet, I think that's the big one on here, is with Miss Casey Musgraves. I Remember Everything.
Not the John Prine song.
Top whatever songs of the year. We're just talking Irish music. Good old Irish boy Barry Obama put out a best of list this year, and that song's on it, man.
Yeah.
Not, but what I will say, wow, you want to talk about somebody like Jason, like who just guts you? I mean, I can't explain it, but yeah, going back to songs, I feel like this is someone where it's just kind of coming through him.
That was the thing. You made a good point when you talked to me about it, about the difference between Jason and Zach in your eyes. If do you remember what you said?
Well, I feel like Jason is a craftsman. He's a songwriter, and he's
Right.
a pure songwriter by trade. And he's developed a craft and a style that's kind of become defined. And I think that's where you were saying before, like he took it to a level that was now a concise rocking record, maybe if
Yep.
that's the way you want to
Right.
put it, where it kind of
Sure.
had like it was very, but it still had his, his songwriting, like it was there.
Hmm.
This is like right from the heart, sitting down at a table with your guitar, hitting record, and coming up with and just letting some kind of greatness flow through you. I've learned a lot about Mr. Zach Bryan since this record's come out, but I'll keep it right to the music and just say that I wasn't prepared for the whole album as I heard it. It kind of starts with a poem, which is like pretty, it's kind of like a statement of intent right out the gate. Like, this is what you're going to hear. This is who I am. And that's what it is. And there's songs on here that are just earworms, but beyond that, they're beautiful. They're heartbreaking. There's something about it that, like I said, it guts me every time. Maybe it leaves you with a little bit of hope, but I keep listening to it. I'll go back to some people I saw live. I saw the War and Treaty and the Lumineers at the same festival this year, just kind of by both being there. So their feature on this record was Ciara Ferrell and Casey Musgraves. And I think all of that was enough of a cosign for me to be like, I guess I'll check it out. I'll check out the record, proper. And I wasn't ready for it. And again, another maybe a late comer for me this year. It's funny because when I asked Justin if he was going to get this record, at the store, I think he said like I don't know that my listeners or I don't know if he was sure if he ordered it that people would buy it. I don't know if there's distribution problems that it wasn't easy to get because I know this wasn't easy to get. Um, but the truth is, I don't know who really listens to this. He's playing the Prudential Center here in March, and I'm curious. Like I might go. I might wait to see him somewhere else. Like Jersey in March is not the place I want to be. No
Mm.
disrespect to Jersey. I work there. I kind of swim in these circles. But yeah, I try to avoid anything until like the warm months of April if I can help it. But Zach Bryan is somebody I probably just you want to see somebody at that time. I always believe in that. Like you want to see somebody at the height of what you're into at that time. For you to see your first show and your last show of last year with an artist that meant something like that to you was pretty cool. I don't like to let those opportunities go by because you're going to be like, oh, I should have seen them on that album, on that cycle, in that place, and I shouldn't have cared what I had going on the next day. I should have got out there. But song for song, pound for pound, minute for minute, I think there's something ridiculous like 17 songs on here. Maybe I don't know.
Mm.
They're great. Again, something that's earnest. Like there's something that comes from him that is pure and it's on this record. And I don't know where he's going to go or what is going to come of his relationship with this barstool chicken fry girl he's dating right now on the Instagram. If she breaks his heart, we'll get a good record. I know that. But this record right here is special. You should check it out. I'm sure if I was surprised of what people know of him because I
Mm.
didn't know of him, right? I didn't know if he falls into like that radio bro country that's on the dial
He
or if this is
he looks like it, but his music doesn't sound like that. And it's like the
no
old it's such a don't judge a book by its cover sort of situation.
too I'm bad at English class and stuff, as people know. But I use big words, but usually out of context. But what I will say is with this, two words that people have said, adjectives, maybe descriptive words, sad, slow.
Mm.
So interesting. I don't know that I would necessarily use one of those as a rule always, but sure, there's some stuff there. But it's definitely not your upbeat, happy, bro country, get your bingo card out, truck beer. It's not like that. It's definitely not that album. It's an earnest album from the heart. Zach Bryan, I guess we'll call it number three.
All right. Yeah. I'm in like Jason Isbell's Facebook group, and I feel like I've seen so many conversations about him. Like, dude, should we like him? Like, like
Right.
that sort of thing. But he openly has said,
When Justin said that thing where he goes, I wasn't sure if people would like him. I was like, what's that? What's that mean? So I was really trying to understand him as an artist. And I don't really care. I guess I just go back to if you can write the songs and you can convey that emotion. He rips out my heart when I listen to it. And I sit there going like,
And
Wow,
that's what it
that was
comes down
such
to.
a. And there's, soundscapes on this record. I know like he's kind of known for almost recording on his back porch with a microphone. But so there's some of that. There's a song at the end of the record where you can hear it like kind of shift from like a produced song to like how he recorded it. Like they kind of took the layers off
Mhm.
and they let it just be that initial recording. And he's actually a little bit flat. I don't know if he's flat or if he's straining, but like there's a moment where you're like, wow, he's got some real moments on this record that are just amazing. So
I think that's like I don't know the record super well or anything, but those kind of moments are the things that a lot of big labels will want you to cut from the record. But when you leave them in, it adds a little extra
whew,
specialness to it.
I tell you, there's at least two of those on here, and on the single too. Like we're talking like we're gonna get granular. On the single, I remember everything with Casey Musgraves when he goes from it kind of starts right before the chorus, and you can't tell if the tape is slowed down, if he's slurring, if he's intentionally trying to slow it down, as if the tape is slowing down and he's slurring.
Mhm.
It is a beautiful moment and a choice, like you said, like those things don't make records when big companies try to put them out, and it made it. And I can go back to like Amanda Shire's Christmas record, and there's some moments on there where I'm just like, well, I'm so glad she left that there because she went for it emotionally. And
Mhm.
whether it came out in a fashion that an engineer would approve of isn't the point. The artist approved of it and they wanted it to be representative of them. That's this album, like almost start to finish. So it's kind of, he says it on there in that first, um, spoken word poem on that first song. Like, but he's like, nah, record companies don't tell me how to make music. Yeah. But
Power to him.
for what that is, man, that's
He's
as punk
playing.
rock as Drew. I grew up listening to anybody that would just expect me to do what I want to do, and it's what it is. So
Shout out
punk
to
rock,
Zach
Zach
Bryan,
Bryan, number three.
man. All right, number two. The most devastating album that I heard this year. It was just getting sad here. But this album is incredible. This is I think this is the album that's gonna cement this artist. Um, Not only did he come back with a record about 10 years after his peak that was just beautiful, then he kind of disappeared, did some experimenting for a few years, and then he came back with another absolute masterful record. And this is another one that is on a ton of lists this year. This is Sufjan Stevens' Javelin. Uh, this album is just a incredibly written record, and you're going to hear so much about the context surrounding the record, where I forget the name of the disease, but he was diagnosed with something that he was unable to walk this year. He's around 50 years old, and so like this crippling thing. And on top of that, people didn't even know he was in this relationship with this with his partner who passed away in his 40s. And this album is so beautiful because it's not only just a tribute to losing someone, but it's also so much about being at an unstable place in your relationship as you're dealing with a sickness that ultimately took this man's life. And so it's hard to listen to some of the songs knowing the context. The first single is called "So You Are Tired," and it's like very much about like being tired in this relationship. And like honestly, maybe if the partner was healthy, they probably wouldn't have stayed together. But ultimately, Sufjan sacrificed that time and was there for them as they went through that. And it's just heart-wrenching. There's a song called Shit Talk on this album. Is another one of my top songs of the year. It's just this beautiful build-up. It's the most grand sounding Sufjan record yet. And he's always known to have very whimsical sounding, devastating lyrically songs, but this album is just massive with like electronic sort of production and stuff on it, but also mixed in with like some acoustic as well. The album closes with a cover of Neil Young's "There's a World" too, which was kind of a almost like an uplifting point after a whole album of just going through it with this man. So I didn't ever expect to really have another Sufjan record this high on my list, but this one just grabbed me and just threw me on the ground and to a puddle and just cried my eyes out. So this one's highly recommended. It's a beautiful record, and yeah, I don't know if you're not doing so hot, give it a spin or don't. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
You got me intrigued. I've heard a lot about that record. I've seen it. Like certain record
Yeah,
covers just see when they come out because they make a lot of those year-end best of lists. That's been on
yeah.
there, but it's a wild situation.
Yeah, there's just so much at play there that was going on into and exploring some concepts that you don't really hear a lot of artists talk about in their music too. So, and a lot of situations that most people don't find themselves in, or so yeah, it was brilliant. I walked into Grimey's listening party for it during the very end and I was like, wow, what is this? Like, I don't even know. I didn't even know that they were having a listening party or anything. And Sufjan's always been one of my favorite artists. And when I realized what it was, I was able to buy the record like 4 days early. I don't know why, but I went home and I put it on and I was just blown away. So, number two.
Wow. Wow. All right. So I guess if we're going to stay in this vein, I'm trying to figure out because number two is kind of my number one. I'm going to stay
Okay.
here and keep it at number two for our list. But I'm going to grab something else here. Hold on. I want to see. Forgot I had all this stuff right here. So it's just the nature of what's going on right here. So my number two, which could be number one, and this is again an early, I want to say like one of the first shows I saw this year back in April. Again, I try not to see shows like January, February. I've been burned so many times in my life, Drew. Eating that Dinosaur Junior show in February, in like, I don't know. I could go through my tickets sometimes, and I go, I didn't go to that show. Oh, I probably ate that ticket. There's a few of those. It gets really sad, but all those shows are
Mm,
generally January, February, March, right? So
sure.
in April,
Especially living in the Northeast.
yeah, Northeast is not fun. I don't want to go outside at all. We have a snowstorm outside right now. I'm hearing the snow drift against the window. I'm not
Mm,
looking forward to the 10 inches of snow that's going to be out there on that driveway tomorrow. But anyway, I digress. The mood, though, for that shoveling experience when I first get out there, and I got to suffer through an hour of time in a way that I don't want to suffer through an hour of time, which happens frequently. I'm going to go to this record. And I'm going to say that for an album that came out, I think I discovered this band right before the album came out through Instagram because they played on some festival with some other band. Again, like some doom-ish, a very unfair label to give bands. I think that people like to put that doom and stoner label out. I'll use it a lot because I think you'll find that it finds its way to those circles and those festivals, right? Those curated things.
mm,
But anyway, I'll get onto it and say that this album is the album that I've discovered, maybe not just for the year. Like I think of Kendra Morris's Nine Lives last year as being the album of the year, and it's a timeless record for me that I'll go back and be like, wow, I can't believe I exist in that same little pocket of time. I feel that way about this record. I wouldn't call them a noise duo. I wouldn't call them um, metal. I wouldn't call them, but I wouldn't not. And I will say this: I got to see them at St. Vitus this year with Rid of Me, who I showed earlier, and they were the headliner, who I had got into, had the album, was blown away by the album in a way that I haven't been with heavy music for a long time. Me and heavy music have had a weird relationship the last few years where I haven't really gotten the satisfaction out of a lot of the paint by numbers metal stuff that I feel is out there. A lot of my thrash bands are kind of like, we're well into like the fourth or fifth album of the reunion phase. Some of those are great, some of those are chugging along, but the truth is, like, I don't find newer heavy music that grabs me enough for it to be something on my most listened to list. I might get that album, I listen to it once or twice, I put it sort of where it goes on the shelf, and that's kind of where album number 23 stays by a band that I've listened to for all these years, and it's not bad. It's exactly what I want from them. And I don't want to use them as an example right now, but like Scorched by Overkill, it's a great Overkill record, man. Like you can depend on like, Taxes, Death, and Overkill. Like they're gonna be consistent. What a wind up, Drew. I haven't even said the name
Oh,
of this.
I'm ready.
So a band that I discovered, and I recommend that everybody in the world goes to check them out. Their name is Djunah, and the album
How's
Femina
that spelled?
Djunah.
Okay.
I probably have some stuff here. Well, I'll show their former CD Ex Voto. So this came out. I think I have a pressing of this, that a later pressing that came out as well. I was able to pick up at one of the shows. And this is with singer, guitarist, Moog bassist. She plays the Moog bass with her feet on a pedal.
Oh.
And I guess before I go too far into it, but singer extraordinaire, but Donna Diane. Okay, so she is our not, I don't know if she's the namesake of Djunah, but the band is her and Jared Kearns on drums. And I want to talk about like the impact this band had when I saw them live. I saw them at St. Vitus, got there early enough, and I was like, I'm going to be right there. I just want to see it all work. I wanted to see like, what we're really doing. This album, I don't know the literary themes that we're drawing from here. There is a very interesting, go to shows, buy merch, support your artists. There's a really cool like poetry book I got of a lot of these songs that are in like poem form that take on different meanings and even different iterations. They're not the same lyrics, they're not the same form, but this is really a great companion to the record. It might be something that's like available on a web store. I don't know. Point being, get the cassette, get the CD, get the posters, get the lithos, get the stuff to support these bands because I want another Djunah record. And I don't know, what's going to come of this band in the future. But I would say for a duo that could be that powerful and unique in the writing, I don't want to put them in a jar and say they're this kind of metal or that kind of metal, but these songs are visceral. This is coming from places of pain. This is coming from places of catharsis. So there's a lot going on here. Anything I say is not going to do it justice for sure. But again, like where it ends on, it ends with this song, Softwood Circle, where you're like, whoa, what did you just do here? We were all here. And it was cool because I got to hear her talk about that in some interview or something where that was the song, or maybe she said it live. This is the song that I couldn't finish. This is the song I couldn't write. I couldn't really finish it. And it is, there's songs on here, man. I will say this, as far as something that I've listened to that I've been like, wow. And then to go meet the band and go see them live. And yeah, I have it signed to me. I had one copy signed to my daughter because I want her to grow up in a world where that exists in her foundation. Now, I don't know if I want her going to that as a 7-year-old going like, kids at school, look what I'm into. But the truth is, it's really a testament to, maybe you've gone through some stuff in your life. Maybe it results in, kind of empowerment. And the way that this album came to be probably wasn't through, all the best circumstances and situations. There's some gutting stuff, some gutting stuff that's going on here. Right. Exactly. And that seems why it's significant in a way, or it has a lasting staying power. But again, you strip it all away, or there's songs there, and there are songs here, but the presentation and the performance, another guy we know, JB, would probably love her guitars and her amps, and her pedal boards, because it really is another musician in the band. It's its own personality, some of the instruments and how they're used. Like I said, like a two-piece, not like Local H or whatever, like just a band that's going to go out. But again, something that's next level. And I've seen it make, because you follow bands, you see it make lists at the end of the year, but I don't know in what conversations this is out there and this is existing in. It should be there. because as far as a statement, as a statement, as an album, as something that's fully formed and such a step up from what they've done in the past. Djunah is my musical album of the year. I'm amazed that I've found this, that I'm here, that I got to see them, that I'm going to see them when they come around again, and all that stuff. Um, I will say that you don't have to be into heavy music to find something like this. Last year,
Interesting.
I found something that was maybe along the same lines. Actually, it could have been earlier this year. Again, something I don't have on physical media, but a band called Tooth. And they are, I want to say that they consider themselves non-binary fairy doom, if I'm
Mm,
using
mm,
their nomenclature.
okay.
It is maybe like I don't care if you don't listen to Doom, if you don't listen to metal, if you don't like it should be up there in a conversation somewhere because it was that significant. You want to talk about something that was going to leave you afterwards going like, whoa, that was something real and hit you. That's exactly what this does to me. So my number two album of the year in our list, but really my musical album, maybe of the seemingly foreseeable future. June.
Awesome.
Demna,
Uh,
Kevin.
yeah, now I'm intrigued by that too. You're putting it just so nicely, you know.
Well, Drew, I don't want to say that we're going to go, around any means of you purchasing an album here, but I want to say with every single copy of this album I've purchased this year, which is another, it's another thing. It shows you what your favorite album is. I have this probably on vinyl 4 times. I have this on cassette. I have it on CD. I have the poetry book. I have the lithos that came out with the album. She really like thematically put this together. And I don't know the literary themes she's drawing upon.
Mm,
Like
mm.
she reads books, Drew.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
listen to bands who read books, the difference there. So it's kind of been interesting to read for me on that level, but the songs and how they come together and how they present themselves in a very unique way, I think is something that's going to get lost out there. And if I have my little soapbox, that's how I want to use it, Drew.
We love it. We love seeing some. I mean, look, I am fiending off of a lot of the big lists every year, the high reviewed stuff, and but you dig in the cracks and find some really interesting stuff, these connections to other artists that you're finding in this web that's constantly expanding. Um, we've had a lot of albums on these lists so far that have really gripped us emotionally and left a huge impact on us. And I think the way that both of us have talked about these records have shown just how personal they've been. In a year where there's just every year there's so many great albums that are still put out every single year. It just takes a little bit of work to find them sometimes. You're not going to find them necessarily right at Target or whatever. Like maybe you will. Maybe it's like Olivia Rodrigo's cool, whatever. But you dig in deeper, you're going to find some stuff that really is rewarding to you. And it's cool that, by seeing some cool opening acts, you're able to be exposed into so much like that. Now, for my album of the year, we're kind of going to throw all that out the window. And this is just the most
I'm
fun
intrigued,
album.
Drew.
This is the most fun album I've listened to all year. I've been a fan of a lot of the bands from this British, they call it the windmill movement. I don't know. It's extremely pretentious, but you got like bands like Black Midi and Black Country New Road and Idols to some extent, a band like Shame. And then a couple of years ago, this band came out of Brooklyn that seemed to be doing something similar to that. And there were some kind of talks about like, oh, did they just like have a rich dad that got them in the scene? And I think that's all garbage because it's all about the music ultimately. Their first album, I liked it. There was like a song I really loved. And I remember talking to my friend Zach about it. We listened to it together and we're like, this band has potential. And I don't want to take any credit for this because this album sounds nothing like what I thought they could sound like. My number one album of the year is Geese with 3D Country. I'm holding it like this because it's got this little tiny Obi strip on the side. We'll take that off so you can see this beautiful AI cover. Just think what you will about that, but We got this cowboy and there's an explosion going on in the background. It's pretty weird. So this band makes kind of that post-punk music, and it comes out in some of the songs on here for sure. There are some weird kind of experimental moments on the album, but it's also just so fun, and they wear their influences on their sleeve. The singer, his voice has really this like weird deep voice that almost sounds like cartoonish in a way, but like he sells it so well that you just
Is it
buy it
AI?
after a little while.
Is it AI?
I don't think so, but but I see what you're getting at. Either way, if you like classic rock, there's moments on this album that sound straight out of like a Rolling Stones album, or some of the crazier moments maybe it reminds you of the Stooges or something like that. You get in a little bit more. I mean, obviously, we're talking about a Brooklyn band. They do have some similarities to bands like the Strokes. Um, But man, like there's a song called Cowboy Nudes. It is just so much fun. It just like I just don't hear bands making these just fun, upbeat, like catchy party songs anymore. And it just reminds you of the days of old, before my time, certainly. A lot of stuff that I grew up listening to. So this is just an awesome record. I got to see them at a tiny venue here in Nashville, one of the smallest ones called Dark Matter. And next year they are opening an arena tour for Greta Van Fleet, and then they will be opening for King Gizzard next year as well. So
I want to say this because I want to give Greta Van Fleet whatever credit that they should be due for taking bands like this on tour. They took a band
absolutely.
called, I think, the Velveteers on tour.
Okay, I've heard the name. Yeah.
Yeah, again, like super big ups to them for whatever they are, whatever they're becoming, and whatever. But to take bands like this
Nashville,
on
Nashville
tour,
band, Greta Van Fleet.
yeah,
But yeah, so this record's just awesome. If you like anything that I was kind of describing before, you like good, catchy rock songs, indie rock, but like also like when these songs can be catchy, but then get a little bizarre and then go back to the exactly where it was before. It's just a breath of fresh air. I think a lot of those post-punk bands are cool, but the sound was kind of just getting recycled over and over, and he needed something fresh in it. And this band is clearly making an impact. I've started to see it on a lot of lists circulating this year. It seems to be carried on a lot of them, maybe in the lower half, but you see it constantly, and everyone seems to be praising it to some degree. And with those big tours coming next year, I think they're only going to get bigger and bigger. So check them out if you don't know them. Getting to see them. I mean, again, I spoke before. I don't mean to hate on them. I'm not a big Greta Van Fleet fan. I am a huge King Gizzard fan. So if you have the opportunity to see Geese open for King Gizzard next year, it's going to be a show to remember for sure. I'm going at least twice. So yeah, Geese, 3D Country, number one album of the year. Just the most fun album. The most fun. I needed this album. I couldn't just be listening to Sufjan all year. As great as that is, I don't want to be crying all the time. So just have some fun and throw on this. I mean, just looks like a party. Your number
well,
one music experience of
my number
2023.
one musical experience. But what you kind of said there about Geese being your kind of go-to party album of the year. I went to a different kind of party this year, Drew. And I got to say that I was there for it.
Is
If
it
I
a
if
mountain or something?
if I go back to the mountain and I try to figure out how I got there this year with this artist, it's not really a straight line. It wasn't like I discovered this artist and went like, wow, they're my mecca, they're my number one artist that I've ever heard or anything like that. But I was just kind of at least I guess immediately taken with the I don't know, with the path this person's taken in in their songwriting, which sounds like they're writing Tom Petty songs for everyone, and it was actually kind of stated that way at one point. That was like my vindication where I was like, yeah, like that's what this is for me because it's not, again, but I don't want to underplay this album or this artist because when new music comes out today, it's not exactly here's the album that's coming out. It's coming out on this date. You just see like a single or you see something pop up on an Instagram feed one day and you're like, well, what's this? And wow, that's a great song. I hope it makes an album. You don't really realize it's part of the release. You don't realize that it's part of what is going to be rolled out throughout the year. But I guess if we're going to go with the true number one, because I've seen this artist 4 times this year, and I think I discovered this artist through Bobby Weir of the Grateful Dead. You look to people to give you that cosign. I love Bobby Weir. I love what he's done. Blue Mountain, his album that came out a few years ago, is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. It's singular. It doesn't have to exist in anything else he's done before. And that to me is the mark of a great album. But we're not here to talk about Bobby Weir. We're here to talk about who I was introduced to through just, I think, playing with him and going like, oh, who's that? Oh, wow, that's not what I expected. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, look at this album that's out right now, and that's how you check people out. But my number one album of the year is not Strays 2. It is not Strays live at Grimey's. It is Strays proper by Margo Price. Pictured in front of the 3-foot version of the album flat that I have, just to show you exactly, maybe a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? Maybe I could just show you, right there that you have the 3-foot album flat. What else do we have? We have, I think the album, like this is Kissues after all, Drew. This is what we're here for, right? We got the signed 10 by 10 that came with, forgive me, maybe the album proper. The CD came with the signed CD cover or an insert, I believe, framed up right here, right alongside the family photos, Drew, and the signed postcard from Straight Twos, the online exclusive Straight Twos, live from Topeka Canyon, where, more than rumor has it that this band just got together in the canyon out there in the hills, took some mushrooms, went in a little, hut that in my mind is somewhere like on Tatooine or something like that. And they're just recording an album that that band has, really come into their sound. But this can kind of dovetail into some live shows because obviously I've seen Margo Price a lot. In fact, she was the first live show I saw, I think at Webster Hall in March of last year. I don't want to venture out my house in March, but I went to see her and Trey Burt open, which was special. That was a show.
Oh Boy Records.
I discovered Trey Burt through that show. I was like, who's this Jeff Tweedy sounding guy up there? He had like a bonnet on and sunglasses just by himself. And you could tell maybe he was in bad shape, but he put out an album this year that maybe I'll throw up in the honorable mentions there. But I will say Margo Price, for that reason, has been sort of like the signpost for me. Like she got that cosign that got me into her. I discovered her, and everybody that I've discovered through Margo Price has made me a better, I don't know, listener, music. I've seen so many cool people open for her and play with her. It's cool. And it's one of those artists that I'll probably see when I can anywhere because I'm just going to go for I don't know. I won't say the experience. Like the show is, it was a really cool, like the way the show is put together. Like I saw it on every leg of the tour, and in different iterations too. But we're here to really talk about the album first and foremost. And I will say what got me about this record are the songs. And that lead single, Been to the Mountain. I've been to the mountain.
And back.
I will say, I appreciate anybody that's willing to go and put themselves out there and be like, you know what? This is what it is. This is who I am. And, in getting to learn about her this year, right? She also put out a book. I don't know. Was this 2020?
It might have been last year or early this year.
Well, I will say, if you know a thing or two, or if you've even heard the cliff notes, like this is one of those like heart-wrenching stories about where somebody, gets to in life and sort of how they persevere in a way. But
I've heard that book transcends the typical music by autobiography.
Yeah, it's not just a musician that's trying to make it, like, doggone it. It's somebody that is so authentic in who they are. And Margo Price, I don't know if she's going to get her due in some ways. I think a few people that I've heard describe her music that aren't really so on board might describe it as, kind of middle of the road. It's kind of vanilla. It's really nothing, I don't know, too exciting. And I've heard people say that, when I've seen her, and these are usually people that are with other people, right? My point is, pitch perfect as a singer, as a songwriter, somebody who's worked and honed their craft. And even some of the stuff that's gotten recognition, the song Lydia off this album
I
has
was gonna
got some
say.
like lauds. And it's a perfect example of how great she could be as a songwriter. But you could take that whole song off the record and it stands on its own. You could take any one of these songs off the record and it stands on its own. That's how much, the instrumentation, the recording, it's very organic, it's very natural. It doesn't seem forced. Going back to Zach Bryan, I think that's something that's important to say. Like, there's something that it doesn't seem like we labored for a year to put this record out. We went to the
It's
valley,
natural.
right? And I don't know what connection this has to Father John Misty out there, but whether this is recorded by in the studio of, or but
Is it
there's a lot of
Jonathan Wilson?
association. What's that?
Was it Jonathan Wilson?
Yes, he produced. He's the producer.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, Strays 2 is such a perfect complement to this. It could be, I want to try to treat this album as what it is, because Strays 2 I just got like a few weeks ago. So it's really fresh. I've heard some of those songs live, so it's really cool to hear like the album version.
Mm.
Because even like now, Margo's playing like Been in the Mountain a little bit different when she goes out. But I love that song. It's like very free form in the middle. She goes somewhere, she
Mm.
puts it out there. But without getting too political, like, you can see what people are really like standing for nowadays. And I think you could see that there's a group of people, especially musicians and artists like in Nashville, that like they kind of circle around each other. And they're, like I said, if I had to put a Mountain Rushmore somewhere together, she'd be on it, because she is like a beacon for me, where I can look to Margo Price as I saw Trey Bird, I said this year, Keishana opened for her
Mm.
in New Hampshire. And I
Okay.
might try to take my daughter. It's a weird one. It's in February. So
Mm.
she's playing somewhere local, but I think it would be really cool, because when I saw that show, I went alone. I drove whatever to New
Yeah.
Hampshire,
Yeah.
5 hours there and back. And it was an amazing show, but it was also something that it was like, oh man, I wish somebody else could have experienced this with me.
Right.
You kind of look around like,
Yeah.
man, I want to get stoked on it. And there was nobody there to talk to, but I'll try to wrap this up by saying, like, I had quite the special year and seeing her at some different places. My highlight was not really meeting her, which is kind of cool. Like, she's still an artist that's big enough. She's not going to let somebody like me hang around the trailer at the end of the night, to meet. I did get to talk for a while, probably at least a half hour, with Jeremy Ivy, her husband, at the end of the show, where I saw them in New Hampshire, which was cool because I saw them ahead of Catbird. But very cool, because I got this sign to my daughter, to our daughter. My wife was with me. We saw her at the Green Space in New York City, which was in conjunction with the Grammy Museum and a series that they do. And it's it's like a New York City grant, where there's a series you can go online, you can see like the interview. But this came with like a performance that followed, which was very unique. So to see Margo in like Webster Hall with her band at I think it was the end of the first leg. Then to see her acoustic, it wasn't even acoustic. She played 4 songs with an accompanying fiddle, which was amazing to see her live and to be like right there in the room, like second row chair, whatever. And just to hear her stories about her life, right? She wasn't there to promote the book, but she was there certainly to promote herself. And it's the year of Margo Price, so why not? I was very lucky to go be there and see that. And then I saw her, like I said, the third time I drove to New Hampshire to see her, where I thought the music hall I was purchasing tickets to, Drew, was in Tarrytown, New York. But that's the kind of guy I am, Drew. I'm committed.
Still
I'm still going to go to
dedicated.
that show and drive 5 hours. That was actually a show my mother wanted to go to. She's like, she just wants to go see music at this point in her life, which I think is great. And she's like, I want to see maybe this Margo Price. And I bought a ticket for her and I to go see Margo Price. And what she told me was the music hall in Tarrytown. And after I purchased the tickets hastily at work and I was driving home, I thought better of it. I went, she's kind of not near here at that point. She's like up here, she's up there. So I checked the schedule, and sure enough, I literally bought tickets for someplace 5 hours away. But I went. It was great. I'm so glad I went. And then I got to see her at my favorite, well, one of my favorite live experiences this year, which was the Catbird Music Festival in Bethlehem, New York.
Mhm.
Hopefully, something that becomes annual. Um, that festival was super special. She played the first day. She was somewhere like middle of the day, which was to me it felt early for her, but that's fine. It was great to see her. Felt like a victory lap seeing her on that one. And what was really cool, she came out, I think that night with the Lumineers and played
Mm,
the Weight. So,
nice.
Robbie Robertson had just passed away. You're in Levon's backyard. So it was kind of like a
Sure.
cool little nod at the end of that, headline performance by the Lumineers, a band that I never saw, never
Yeah.
heard. I think I know the one song, right? Some
Sure.
people know the one
Oh,
song.
hey. Yeah.
It's a song, right? And
Yeah. It's a big
I
one.
got to see that band without knowing anything else or knowing anything about them headline a festival, which was kind of wild. And but Margo Price has sort of been my steady through the whole year, been there with me, um, just showing me new music all year long. So my
Just
album, I have to, it has to be Margo Price. If 2024 isn't the year of Margo Price for me, like 2023 wasn't the year of Kendra Morris, who I think we should get to honorable mentions, Drew. Are you ready to do some honorable mentions or some
yeah.
live shows? I know we've
Sure.
passed our
Yeah.
time. We could do
That's
some
okay.
little snippets. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's our
Yeah.
show, Drew. Nobody's
Yeah.
watching this anyway. Three people that are watching this. Who cares? We're just doing this for us. Tell me your honorable mentions or some live shows, Drew, before I go on and on.
Sure. Yeah. I wanted to shout out first and foremost. I was just telling you about this right in the beginning. Obviously, the walls are pretty bare over here, but I do have this poster right above my bed because I thought it would be hilarious.
I don't even
Uh,
have a Kiss poster above my bed, but continue.
this is a poster of Wednesday guitarist MJ Lenderman, who has been making some waves in his solo career as well. Definitely heavily influenced by like Pavement and the Silver Jews or Songs Ohia, which you think Songs Ohia and Jason Molina, that takes you back to like someone like Neil Young. It's a very just like alt country sort of sound. He released a live record this year. I think it was called Live and Loose. It hasn't gotten a physical release yet, but he had two new songs that he was playing that are probably going to be on his Anti Records debut, is probably due this year. Uh, he's also, like I said before, he's the guitarist in the band Wednesday, which I wasn't quite as high on their record from this year, but that got a lot of really high rave reviews as well. He's all over the place at this point. I went up to the merch place and I was like, I gotta get something. And they had this poster for $10. And the merch guy was like, you should buy this. We're gonna get sued eventually. So may as well get it now. So I went for it. And now it's right above my bed. And when I wake up in the morning, I look up and I see Michael Jordan Lenderman. Anyway, so that live album was really good. I listened to it a bunch after I saw him at the Basement East in Nashville this summer. I talked a lot about a lot of the other shows I saw this year. One live record from an artist that I have not seen. I know you have, but I wanted to shout this out because it's so good.
Show it, Drew. Show it. It's so good.
The Charlie Crockett Live at the Ryman album that came out this year. It's just fantastic. I wish I was at this show. If I moved a
Right?
year earlier, I would have been here for sure. So I'm not missing him next time. I know Rob got to see him at the Catbird Festival last year, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I ended up bringing in all my previous Charlie Crockett studio records that I owned and traded them in at Dark Side just because I got this one, like, and no,
It
like the
is that good of
records.
a live album, though.
It
It
is so
really
good.
is.
It's encompassing of all the records he's put out so far, and he's pretty prolific. There's a lot of records,
Yeah.
but most of the bases covered on here. As much as I do love those studio records, I'm in a time where I need some more money. So it's like, you know what? I'll do a little 3-for-1 deal. I picked this up, and it's just I've played it so much, so that is fantastic too. Um,
Now, Queen Live Killers holds the Queen placeholder in my collection. That's my favorite de facto Queen record. You don't need a
mm,
catalog of a band to like love a band or to have everything or we're talking about Queen, a studio band. I have all those records too. I love those albums, but if you're going to do that, if you're going to sell your Charlie Crockett records, That's a good record to keep.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. My favorite record from Coal Mine Records this year, and well, this is more of the Karma Chief
Yeah.
imprint
Yeah,
that we
yeah.
talked about, but this record's awesome.
Mhm.
This is Pale J. Uh, he's a mysterious figure, as you see on the back there. He's always wearing that ski mask, but it's so soulful, but like with a little bit tinge of like hip hop in the beats. Like you can tell that he's just like into the sample game and that sort of thing too. They did a really cool opening single with the band Okonski, which is a couple members of Duran Jones and the Indications.
Ooh,
Uh,
another great album that came out this year.
was a very good one.
Ooh,
They released
yeah.
a single, their first single from that album, and then he took that song and made it into his first single, like sampled it and sped it up a little bit to the song By the Lake. So, yeah, they get like a feature on there as well. So, this album's just silky smooth. If you're into that kind of sound, the R&B, that was a good one. Um, I'll do two more real quick and then I'll turn it over to you. I mean, I've got a bunch that I really loved.
Keep going, Drew. Keep going.
This is Rat Boys. This is a Chicago indie rock band. From my understanding, they've been around for a long time, but this is the record that they're finally starting to see get their due. It's called The Window, and it's just really, really catchy female vocal indie rock band. And so we got a bunch of cool Polaroids on the sleeves. But yeah, this is a great record as well. And also want to shout out one of Third Man Records' new signees. This is Hotline TNT. This is a very like shoegazy sort of record. Sounds like it was straight out of the 90s in a lot of ways. Jack White's been bringing in a lot of interesting artists on the label lately. I don't know how much involvement he actually has in any of that, but it's cool that they're promoting some new artists and some ones that have just been like needing that extra push, like, the backing to show the world just how good they are. And one of the prettiest records I have this year too. But yeah, Third Man Record Zone, Hotline
Yeah,
TNT.
see,
I'm seeing them open for Wednesday. I just mentioned them before in just a couple weeks. So it's going to be a really good two band show here in Nashville in a couple
and
weeks. But
amongst all the stars, Drew, that you've ran into casually or otherwise that you've seen this year, okay, seeing Olivia Jean,
I did see
right?
Olivia. Yeah. Yeah,
Who was hanging
and
out there with that
her husband was
who
there.
was in disguise in the back of the room with that goatee, Drew?
Yeah, at least he didn't have the blue hair going at that point.
Yeah, no. I always love it when, I you can't tell if like the facial hair is like, is he joking? You
Yeah, it
know?
was very Steven Seagal-ish.
Yeah. I had that when I got married, Drew. I had that
I've seen some pictures on your
goatee.
Instagram.
It's
It's
pretty wild.
something.
Yeah, if you go and look at the picture I have with like
You,
Kevin Smith,
dude,
it's
you
one of
look
my
like a
favorite pictures of me
completely
ever.
different person.
And it's one of my favorite pictures of me for that reason, because I thought I was gonna die. So I'm here. And
Wow.
you
Still
know,
kicking.
yeah, man. All right. You got any more? Do you have any more
No,
honorable mentions? No.
I mean, I could keep going, but I'm gonna cut it off
Man,
at
I
that.
could keep
Check
going
those
too. You
out.
mentioned some records. Like I checked out that Pale J record after you. That Akonski one is like a really sleeper jam
So
record.
nice.
And it's funny. You could just kind of keep buying every coal mine record that comes out. You're not going to find fault with too many of them. So you almost have to be. I'm at the point where you got to be very careful because
Hmm.
I end up liking so many. And that's great when you find like a label, that you can kind of use as a signpost and like, like they've put their stamp on it, they're putting it out, and then they have those offshoots. So, all right, I'm gonna grab a stack, Drew,
Oh
and
yeah,
we're just
let's
gonna flip
go.
through. I don't even know how
Yep.
we're gonna do this right now, but we're talking coal mine. So I want to show. I can't even believe again, it's not on my top 10. This was a grower for me for sure because it came
Yeah.
out in a different fashion than maybe previous records for Kendra Morris came out. But I am what you are waiting for. What I'm waiting for. Okay.
Hmm.
Not the single, what are you waiting for? Okay, very, wordsmithy, but really cool. I had to apologize to Miss Kendra when I saw her DJ Alanna Royale show, and I missed the record release show that I had a ticket to for this for my daughter's birthday party, Drew. You know, if you're gonna miss it for anything, miss it for your daughter's
I
birthday
think that's
party.
fair.
Yeah, but when the ticket was released, I just got it right away. I said, let me try to make it. And I couldn't get myself down and back to Brooklyn in time. But yeah, definitely something she put together with people as opposed to really, I won't say writing the record herself, but it's a collaborative effort. Some of the songs, like you can hear it, they're not, it's not Nine Lives at all, but it's a grower. There's some great songs on here. And in the interest of just keeping it moving, let's go down the list to somebody that I cannot believe, Drew, is not on my top 10 this year because again, somebody that I saw at Catbird,
Oh
I've
yeah.
always wanted to see. I can't fathom how big she is with just 2 albums out there in the world. I don't know anything about how she got from point A to point B or where the housewife fits in. But Morgan Wade, you want to talk about sad songs? She comes on stage to AC/DC. It's a fever pitch. She comes out in a Def Leppard Hysteria shirt, and we keep it like right here the whole show. And it just cuts you. You just want to almost slow dance and waltz with everybody around you. Like that's what Morgan Wade does to me, Drew. And
Mm.
yeah, I don't know, not for everybody, but not in that radio pop country that I would assume it would be. There's some real, like real songs. Again, there's some interesting songwriting tropes that are sort of, you know, here and there where like the song starts with the same line as it ends with. There's a lot of that in a lot of country that I listen to. Um, it kills me sometimes because when you recognize it, it takes you out of it. And if it didn't, you know, these are amazing songs. I like her first album, Reckless, a lot. I got to see her live. It was weird. She played 40 minutes in the middle of the afternoon. They probably booked her way before she kind of blew up this year.
Mm.
So Morgan Wade should be on my list. You kind of said 90s rock before. Another album that's right
Oh
there.
hell
I
yeah.
can't even believe this album came out this year. I feel like I've listened to it like that much. Discovered Bully after this album, but
It's a
lucky
good
for
one.
you, bummed that I did not see them live this year because they played, you know, a lot of surrounding areas on this record. Um, I could go on and on.
Another Nashville artist.
Yeah, you're lucky, man.
Yeah.
And you know, is there a Linda Perry connection? Did she write with her, record with her? I don't know. I don't know, but it's not the point. I'm probably very wrong. But killer record, man. And like all the vibes you showed, what a great album before. I'll just kind of put that right here. Caroline Polachek is a phenomenal artist. And checking out her back catalog has been awesome too, I will say.
Yeah.
Now, here's a record that should be on here. Here's a record, Drew. You see
Uh,
where I'm going with this? That should be on here. Okay, we're paying attention. I want to say that we're going to get to live shows really quick, right? We could do a couple live shows here. I know we've talked about them, but like, there's, you know, I should just say it. This is my live show of the year. You know,
mm.
not a top 10 record. I don't know. I've listened to this. I love it. Again, made Barry Obama's Summer Jam playlist, to which Lucy Dacus replied, War Criminal didn't make the year end playlist. But what I will say, Drew, this album, I think is so great because when I couldn't find that, you know, I saw Drew looking up there at the sky, dressed up as Phoebe Bridgers when The Punisher was his
Mm.
album of the year, and I said, like, all
Mhm.
right, help me understand Phoebe Bridgers, because at the time, like, she was just the girl that was on Saturday Night Live that people were giving shit to because I don't
She
know, she
smashed her
smashed her
guitar.
guitar and it was like staged or something, and people hated that and hated her.
David Crosby gave her shit for it.
Right,
R.I.P.
right. It was, yeah, he went at him pretty hard. It was like she's just like, I just wanted to do it. It was stupid. And
Right.
right. And then you see that and you go, well, how can I jump to her defense? Like she needs me to defend her against Mr. Old Mean David Crosby, who learned his lesson this year. But
Sure.
I will say, um, what an album, man. I mean, their songwriting together, like I couldn't find that entry point. I think you were the one that was, you were like, oh, check out the EP. So I got the EP, and I was like blown away. And I couldn't figure out what the difference was when I was like, well, where's like the Phoebe Bridgers stuff I like? Where's the Lucy Dacus stuff I like? The glue for me, man, and the difference maker is Julian Baker. She's amazing. Her
Yeah.
solo stuff is not exactly what I thought it would be, but like it took
Mm.
me somewhere else. So I appreciate her on another level. And I know
Yeah.
she represents, and this band represents a lot to a lot of people, a lot of young people today, which I think is amazing. And I will say, to see a couple of shows at Madison Square Garden this year, I think I saw Billy Joel. obviously saw Kiss for 2 nights. I saw them at Madison Square Garden. It was the show. To see something like in its time, in its place is wild. And it's a great record. I feel like something they do amongst them where like they're maybe a little bit more self-conscious about their songs. And I think that's good because there's so many albums out there where there's no real producer. There's no label saying we want to put this out to the masses, which is good. And then sometimes it works against itself where there's nobody in the quality control department. I'm not saying that needs that here. I'm saying in general, maybe that's a thing, right? But I will say they're doing it themselves. I can't wait to hear what comes next, but seeing that show was amazing. I got floor seats. I got one by myself. Nick at the record store made me so nervous to go there. He's like, they're going to eat you alive. He had me more nervous than like going to a Slayer show when I was a kid. Like, what's going to happen to me? But I was fine. We're all there because you love the same music. And an amazing show by an amazing band at an amazing time. Excited to see where they go. But Boy Genius has to be on here somewhere. So there it is. And I got a few quick hits
there.
Yeah, I mean, and there's just something, like I said, there's something so pure about it, but you could tell like they're like really like, is this good enough to present to each other? And I don't know, they're a really good barometer for each other because that record is beyond a great record. It should be on all the lists it's getting this year. I know it's up for like every Grammy award. They're going to be a household name, and they probably should be because who else, and it makes a real good case for like people who have their own careers kind of going like we could be stronger together. We could be more powerful. And I'm not talking in popularity or reach, but like in their songwriting and their album. So, all right, there you go.
A lot of comparisons to a little band called Nirvana. Not necessarily by sound, but they've been like doing
I think by themselves,
the photo shoots and
Yeah. But I will say it feels like that in a way. They didn't come out of left field necessarily and change the world, but their impact is like undeniable right now. And it's based on like some killer songs, and like Julian Baker, man, she's killer. What a great guitar player too to see live. That was really fun. Their band. And I guess we could just kind of dovetail this into some live shows. I got to see them with Muna, who I was not really too aware of. And that was one of the best parties I've been to this year, man. Woo.
They're fun.
So along the same lines of Muna, another band that I got into this year, 79.5, which had a really couple of strong songs on this record and a couple that take me out of being like, this is say she for me. But this is definitely a fun, if you want like that disco throwback record, summer jams. There's a few, Duran Jones makes an appearance on this record. That's the jam, if you ask me. And then there's some real cool stuff on this. And I feel like, I don't know if there's a connection to Say She. There might be a connection. People who played together who no longer play together. I don't know. You could Google that, I think, today. But
I actually I wanted to check this. I saw them open for Duran Jones.
Yeah. Did they come out and do the song?
No, it was before.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe that's they're like, hey, we should collab. Kate got Durant. But great record. You mentioned Jeff Rosenstock before. Another man that does not. Well, I think Jeff gets I hear people talking about him and listening to him who are much younger than that I would expect to be like into some stuff. So another guy that I always love because of what he does is Mike Park from Asian Man Records. How he just puts out records consistently, still sells them out of his parents' garage. And he's a great dude. I have so many records that I've gotten from him over the years, so many great reissues that I can't really think of right now. But one that I want to say is a new band, and apparently they're a super group, and I had to do a little research before I even spoke about them. It doesn't really matter. I just like the record because it's like raw and aggressive, but Doki Doki. Apparently they're a super group on Asian Man Records. You could do all the Googling you want. They had like a video, one of the promo videos was like them like in the back of a van playing like the song I Was Killing It, Man. And it just got me up, it got me like, wow, I love young bands that are full of piss and vinegar, man. Drew, you get older, man, your testosterone drops. You need the youth to come in and give you a little bit of power sometimes. And that's what Doki Doki did for me this year. And I still got a stack, man. Jenny Lewis, Joy Y'all. There's an album, man. If I was a middle-aged lady going through a divorce and I got myself the puppy in the truck, Drew, this would be my number one this year. This is such an album of songs, maybe of wherever she was at in life. But I remember as a kid, I didn't know this obviously until a couple of years later, many years later, but on the Golden Girls, she was a sitcom actor, she'd
Right.
see her like in the bit parts. But what's crazy is I don't know, like she was out there with what, the Postal Service this summer, like just part of the whole thing
Yep.
on like a
She was
feature in
in
that band in the show. But
she
yeah,
was in Rilo Kiley
Rilo
as
Kiley, I
well.
mean, that's a band that like never got their due, if you ask me. And like
Yeah.
I did not make the connection between the Jenny Lewis and because the first time I heard her was with that Watson Twins record,
Mm-hmm.
which is a couple
Mm-hmm.
albums ago for
Yep.
her now. And I didn't make the connection to Rilo Kiley at all. Like
The
I
weird,
will
yeah.
say it might have been like this album or the one right before where it was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, Jenny Lewis, that and it's
That
kind of
one.
mind blowing
Yeah.
and it makes sense all at the same time. So
Weird
killer.
thing about that album, it's on Blue Note.
It is. And it's
It's
got
very
that,
weird.
it's got a real weird yeah. And that's interesting because I always love that. Like when the album's like on the label that you go like how or why, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you're talking like songs all day long,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know.
Rhiannon.
Rhiannon Giddens, it's a great album. It's a nice Sunday afternoon record, Drew. Want to class it up a little bit.
Tomorrow's Sunday.
And it's Saturday night right now as we're recording this, right, Drew?
Mm-hmm.
My Saturday nights are spent with Miss Jamie Wyatt. Sure, don't tell the wife. But I will say that everybody likes a little Jamie Wyatt, all right? And everybody likes to feel good. And what I think doesn't translate with the album cover, let's see how close I can get.
Mm.
I don't know if you see that shine on her tooth, that little diamond on her tooth, Drew.
Oh.
Yeah, it gets lost in there in like the thumbnail, man, but it's just exactly what this album is, a little cheeky nod to being, I don't know. You know, I really like this. It could have been on my top 10. I've been listening to it a lot since it's come out. This and Caroline Polachek, easily
Mm.
top 10 for me all year long, but there's just so many. I think I
Yeah.
had, how many new albums did you get this year? I got 30-ish, 34, 35 between CD vinyl. Like I said, a couple didn't come out. How
I'd say
many
roughly the same, I would say. Yeah.
and purchased? Like, isn't that crazy? Like, it's a significant amount. And I've been trying to curtail it. And I feel like this is the most concise year I've had in a while.
Yeah.
But it's also been the best collection of albums from a year I feel like I have from a singular year. I do use YouTube Music because I paid for the YouTube premium.
Mhm.
So I like to check out some albums. I download them for my ride home, sometimes in the car. But what I will say is all those are great albums. Trey Burt, Traffic Fiction, again, could have been in this conversation. I love his first two albums. I guess is them being who he is. And this is sort of that album where he's trying to, I don't know, he made some other steps, some other growth. And it's cool to hear him because I only discovered him this year. So it's got a couple albums out. Trey Burt, Traffic Fiction. I will just show it because I feel like this came out so early in the year. Came out in
Yeah.
January.
Yeah, it was early.
A1 day one with the good Lana Del Rey for me. For some reason, ever since I heard Video Games, Drew, when that came out, I have been just 100% down with that sound. Like, I can't even believe she's an artist of our time sometimes. I haven't seen her live. I'm envious that Becca met her, I think, at a record
Wow.
size. She met her in London when she lived there. I was like, that's wild.
Yeah.
But really
She's an
consistent,
icon.
I would
She's
say.
really become an icon of the era. And,
Wild.
and the records are just consistent, like
Consistent, and that's what I
I
would
like
say. Like,
some more than others for
yep,
sure. Like that one wasn't quite my favorite, but I liked some songs on it a lot. The song with
like,
Father John Misty was
yeah.
so good. But yeah, she's just always doing it,
And a
and
lot
I
of
give her a
like
lot of credit.
Father John Misty, like, there's themes here, like best buds with Nikki Lane, like, so
Mm.
there's a crossover between her and that California Canyon country a little bit more. And I'm gonna go right back to center for me for my last, if it's cool. For one more album where I go, again, I feel like there's a lot of heavy music that isn't represented for me this year in a way it's been in the past. But man, we grow, we change, and like I said, like I want an impact when I listen to something. Um, if I put some album on, like the last real heavy album that I went, wow, this lived up to expectation for me was Torn Arteries by Carcass that came out a few years ago, which was
Mm.
easily my album of the year. And that was just something where like, man, there's hand claps on the record if you listen. There's like shakers, and you're like, no, it's Carcass, it's Carcass through and through, and it's that grind that I love. And in a very different way in metal, there's a traditional space that has been a very big scene the last couple of years, a new wave of traditional heavy metal, if you will. But bands across the world that are doing that. This is a band that was initially from Canada. They're somewhere, I believe, in the Netherlands. Forgive me, but Smolder, man, they consider themselves arcane power doom, Drew, and a Violent Creed of Vengeance is their second album, and it's pretty traditional in the way that this album cover might lend itself to, I don't know, to say, but it's such a great, well done. When you find a record that did what it said it was going to do, and it did it, gave you what you wanted. It again, female fronted vocals. Sarah is from Banger TV. She does a lot of reviews on there. So another signpost. A lot of folks from Banger do some great music of their own right. Smolder, Violent Creed of Vengeance. I mean, for me to show albums this year, these are ones I listen to.
Yeah.
And it's a nice little bow that I could put on that, Drew, where I could go, like, all right, I still have a couple metal albums. I got my metal street cred this year, even though I'm out there seeing boy. That's why I had to buy this Boy Genius shirt.
It's so fitting for you.
At a first glance, you'd be like, that dude's hard.
Right.
But you don't know.
You don't even realize how hard he is.
Got a soft belly,
I think that doing this sort of thing is just a nice way to reflect on a year, like obviously we go through a lot of different life experiences every year and that sort of thing, and all this music comes along for the ride. You know, I'm sure we'll both find records that came out in 2023 that we'll love in future years that we missed in the moment. But right in this moment, these are the ones that touched us the most. I think if you want, we can put together a little playlist or something that we can share with the video, just like with a song from each of the albums that we chose, just to give a little taste for anyone that's interested. Um, yeah, we've run pretty long on here, but I feel like you know, it's been a good one. So, and there's just so much music to talk about other than Kiss. So maybe with some future years we might change some of the logos on some of those road cases behind you. Maybe put a Boy Genius metal logo on one of them or something, just mix it up.
Got to give
Margo
me a couple
Price.
more albums first. You got to give me
Right,
at
right. You got to
least
fill the
like,
road case. Yeah.
and can I just say this? Like, that's how much I like Boy Genius right now. All right. I haven't I haven't gotten it yet, but that EP, the rest that they put out,
Mhm.
it's on 10-inch format, which is a savage move. I hope they correct that and rewrite history. And it's just the worst format. It's the worst size record. It's the most needless format. I can go on and on. I don't ever want to go to my 10 inches. I don't want to keep them with my 12-inch records. You can't keep them with your 7 inches, which is kind
Yeah.
of where
What do
they
you do with
belong.
them?
So
I
for
have
them to
like
be like,
two.
hey, we're gonna give you a new album this year, but it's on 10 inches, pretty savage. I don't know. I respect that in a way, but
I'll
I'm
say
gonna get it.
my
I'm sure.
my boys Geese released 4D Country after 3D Country with some extra tracks, and that got released on a 10-inch as well, which I have. I'm looking at it right over there, but I don't feel like getting up. So
I love 7-inch records, man, but 10-inch records kill me.
yeah, I haven't even opened it yet. So
There you go. Well, I
but
think we talked about our live record. Like we had a lot of live shows this
I
year
think so.
in
Yeah.
what we talked about, which I think is sufficient for me. But I will say this year I saw almost 30 nights of music, which is almost an entire month of seeing live music at night. And it was more than I anticipated. It's more than I had done in previous years. And it's different than I've done in previous years. I went to go see bands that I want to see now, whether I had to get in the car and drive myself 5 or 6 hours and drive home. I really wanted to go out there, and I hope to do it this year. I have no idea how I'm going to make Nashville for Sierra Farrell in March. But Drew, I'm figuring it out. Like you said,
I
this
want to see
music's
it.
there with you as you go through the year. Her album, maybe it's called Fox Hunt. I don't know what the album proper
Mm,
will be called, but I hope it takes over the world. Um, and again, somebody that doesn't seem to be for everybody, but she's got a timeless voice and somebody that, you know, I hope next year we're going, hey, here's where we were. Sierra
yeah.
Farrell was there with us. So
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to have her along for the ride from everything I've heard. And looking forward to the new record as well. But yeah, I'm so curious, with a new year, I'm gonna learn about a whole bunch of bands that I didn't even know
right,
existed or always
wild.
weren't on my radar. Someone like Jeff Rosenstock, who's been around forever, and this is the album that got me hooked on him. You never know what's going to happen. If you're open and you're willing to hear new sounds and experience new emotions through music and carried out in so many different ways, I mean, you're just always going to be surprised. You're always going to be discovering and that lifelong fear that I've always had, when everyone always says, oh, when you turn 30, you're going to stop discovering new music. Just keep digging. There's so much to dig through, whether at your record store or even doing the dreaded going on Spotify and finding someone through someone else. If you go to a show and you follow who the opener is, if you follow a label and start discovering who the artists are on the label that you like, there are so many ways to discover so much music that is going to be so rewarding and powerful for you throughout the year. So with all that said, I don't really have a whole lot more to go on for 2023. We're now 6 days into 2024. Not a whole lot of music announced so far, but we're looking forward to seeing what's coming. A whole bunch of surprises. And this isn't usually the vibe of our podcast, more or less. We'll be digging into the collecting and that sort of thing as well. But I think that early on here, give you guys a taste of what we're all about, the kind of music we're into, the kind of experiences we like to go after, and just saying goodbye to what was a pretty good year.
I think a
Anything
really
to
cool
add?
year for music, right?
Yeah.
Well, Drew, like you said, man, hopefully we'll be sitting here and next year having discovered music that we haven't even. That's like to me, that's the craziest thing because there was a point in my life where I didn't know where to find the new stuff. It's not that I didn't
Mm.
like the new stuff. It's not that my whole life I haven't listened to music that's well beyond the bounds of kind of what my meat and potatoes might have been, but to find it in so many forms and to now know where to find it. Right? There's a lot of places that an old guy like me can go and look and find these great bands that I have no business being a fan of. But man, to go like meet Mama this year and be like, yo, you guys rule. You guys rule. Like, don't stop. And I hear some of your favorite songs like played live. It's wild. It's just, this is where you hear people like, I always think to that interview that George Harrison gave, where you always heard him saying how he always felt like a kid. He's like, it's just not fair. He goes, you see me as an older person, but I'm just a kid.
Mm.
In music, you have a chance to like, I don't know, I'm as 20-year-old as the guy next to me at that show, I don't know. Maybe I
Yeah.
don't have all the energy and the stamina that I once had. Um, but there's a lot of stuff I don't want to go and do and see again. And because that's what life is. You have like these, it's cyclical, but you can go anywhere. You don't have to just keep doing this. You could just one day go, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do this. This is where I feel like my heart's at. And, you know, I can't be any luckier for having spent some time at a record store, meeting people that have exposed me to music that I care about. And it's way more meaningful than I ever thought that I would. I don't want to give you too much credit, Drew, but yeah, I should say that there's a lot of people in that store, Bryan, Tyler, who's got the best taste of man, oh, he makes it hard to bring records to that store, man. You're like, nothing I bring is gonna, you know,
Tyler's always got the fire.
he brings the heat. He knows what he's doing over there. But there's some of what we do. And I mean, obviously, when you buy albums in multiple formats a year, you have to get like the 3 foot album cover flat version. You have to see them everywhere. You have to, move heaven and earth to get the book signed for your kiddo, just to say like one day, like, wow, I'm glad I did that. Like, I'm glad I was there. You have these memories. I try to take photos of shows. I try to remember things because there's so much I wouldn't remember of like the 28 shows I think I saw this year. That Catbird show is by far the best thing I've done musically. And I'm hoping stuff like that happens that kind of combines the albums that are coming out that year with the people you really want to see that year. Yeah, man, I wanted to do something where we were able to talk about, music that's outside of Kiss. Because believe me, Drew, as soon as this ends, I'm going to go throw on Crazy Nights and do my interpretive My Way dance of Paul Stanley, Just to cleanse the palate like a nice limoncello.
With that in mind, please do all the fun stuff. Give us a like if you hung around this long. I mean, seriously, what are you doing with your time? But
You have nothing
thank you.
better to do. Really?
Thanks, I guess. Hope
Thank
you
you.
enjoyed it. And yeah, a whole lot of Kissues coming in 2024. This is just the beginning. So signing off. Until next time. See you, everybody.